The water spread into the dust and vanished before he could even reach for it. Water he'd hauled up from a well half a mile down the road, in the worst heat the valley had felt in 30 years. His arms wouldn't answer him anymore. His heart was doing something it had no business doing, skipping and stumbling around in his chest like a drunk missing the stairs. Behind him, far off, Clara was screaming his name. He heard it the way you hear things with your head underwater. 41 years old, face down between 2 rows of dying beans, on land he'd half killed himself to keep. And the last thought he had before everything tipped sideways wasn't about the drought or the debt. It was worse than that. I did everything right. So why is it all still falling apart? To understand how a strong man ends up like that, you have to understand what he believed. Because Amos didn't fail from laziness. He failed from the exact opposite. And that's the part nobody ever warns you about. Amos took over the farm the winter his father passed. 10 acres, a leaning barn, an old tractor rusting beneath a tarp, and one sentence the old man had repeated so often it may as well have been carved over the door. An honest man's hands are never clean. His father had meant, as far as anyone knew, that honest work ought to leave a mark on you. Amos heard something harsher. He decided that if his hands came clean at the end of the day, then he had not earned the day at all. Lord, did he live by that? He was up at 4 every morning, before the light, before the birds. He planted by hand because he did not trust a machine to care the way he did. He carried water by the bucket. He pulled weeds until his fingers cracked and bled, then wrapped them in rags and went back out. When neighbors offered to lend him a machine, he waved them off with a grin. I'll manage. He paraded his blisters and his aching back like medals. If he didn't taste copper in his mouth by noon, he figured he was slacking. He wore his exhaustion like his Sunday coat, proud of it. At supper, he would fall asleep with the fork still in his hand, and Clara would work it loose from his fingers and lay a blanket over him right there at the table. She tried, early on, to reach him. You come to bed at midnight, and you're up at 4, she said one night. That's not farming, Amos. That's slow bleeding. Corn doesn't grow itself, Clara. Neither does a grave. He kissed her forehead and told her not to worry. He always told her not to worry. The men in town admired him the way you admire something you would never want to become. That fella works like 3 men, they would say over coffee. If sweat turned to money, he'd own the county. But it did not, and he did not. Every harvest came in thin. Every autumn the bank got a little more of his handshake and a little less of his crop. His beans were fine, just fine, nothing more. And there was nothing left of him for anything else. His children had learned to stay quiet around a father who was always either working or sleeping. The one thing Amos could not stomach was Alden. Alden farmed the 10 acres right over the fence. To Amos, it looked like the same soil, the same sun, the same rotten luck with the sky. What he could not yet see was that Alden had spent years learning where the ground held water, which crops buyers actually paid for, and which jobs no man should keep doing with his own back. Alden had started with less than Amos had, bought his place on a loan and a prayer. The first few years had nearly broken him. He had made mistakes, lost money, and learned the hard way that being busy was not the same as getting ahead. He worked, near as Amos could tell, from about 8 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. Then he sat on his porch with a book and a glass of tea and watched the sun go down like he owned all the time in the world. Years earlier, when Alden had first laid black irrigation tubing beneath his rows, he had offered to show Amos how it worked. Amos had barely looked up from his hoe. "I don't need another man's shortcuts." Alden had nodded, said nothing, and never offered again. His fields came in green and heavy, damn near double what Amos pulled off the same acreage. It ate at Amos. Some nights he lay awake running the arithmetic, and the numbers never came out fair. He works half of what I do. He gets twice what I get. Where's the sense in that? Then the drought came, and it burned the sense out of everything. The creek dropped to mud. The wells did not disappear, but they recovered slowly now, giving back only a little water after every hard draw. Every farmer in the valley faced the same question. When there was not enough water for everything, what did you choose to save? Amos answered the only way he knew how. He tried to save all of it, all 5 crops, all 10 acres, every row. He started rising at 3 instead of 4. He walked to the far well and hauled water back, trip after trip after trip, until his shoulders went numb and his hands stopped feeling like his own. His father's voice pushed him on. An honest man's hands are never clean. Over the fence, Alden did something that made his blood boil. Behind Alden's shed sat a low, covered holding tank. During the night, while nobody was drawing from the well, the water level recovered slowly. Alden had spent years capturing that trickle instead of letting it go to waste. But the tank was not large enough to save everything, so Alden did not try. He shut down his weakest patches, covered the remaining rows with straw to hold moisture in the soil, and sent what water he had through black tubing to the 2 crops most likely to survive and still pay their way. One morning, he walked out, turned a couple of valves, checked the lines, and went back inside. His water reached the roots in the cool of dawn before the sun could steal it. He was done before Amos had finished his 10th trip. On the 15th day of that, something in Amos gave out. He was carrying another bucket when his vision went soft at the edges, then white. His legs simply quit. The bucket slipped from his hands, and the water spread into the dust before he could even reach for it. Clara was screaming his name somewhere behind him. Then the world tipped sideways. The doctor did not dress it up. "You're dehydrated, you're severely exhausted, and your heart is not keeping a steady rhythm." Amos tried to sit up. The doctor pushed him gently back down. "No lifting, no heat, no field work until I clear you. You go back out like this, Amos, and the next thing that gives out may not come back." That night, Amos lay in the dark with a needle in his arm and stared at the ceiling. He had faced bad seasons before, bad debts, dead crops, hail the size of eggs. He had never once doubted the one thing beneath all of it, that hard work always pays. Now the floor was gone from under that belief, and he had nothing to stand on. "I gave it everything," he said, so quietly Clara almost missed it. "Everything I had. Why isn't it enough?" She did not rush to fix him. She just held his hand. "Maybe working hard was never the whole of it, love. Maybe there's a piece nobody ever taught you." For 10 days, the doctor gave Amos no choice but to sit still. The first morning, he tried to pull on his boots before dawn. Clara found him at the edge of the bed, bent over and shaking with the effort. She took the boots from his hands and set them by the door. "Not today." He hated those words. He hated watching the sun rise without being in the field. He hated hearing other men's trucks pass along the road. He hated the way his body had become something he could no longer command. But with nothing left to lift, carry, or force, he began to think. Near the end of the second week, when he could walk without the room spinning, Amos did the hardest thing he had done in years. He walked over to Alden's, and he knocked. Alden opened the door. Something in his face softened. "Heard you tried to kill yourself proving a point," he said. "Get in here." They sat on the porch. Beyond the fence, Alden's fields were not untouched by the drought. A few outer rows had browned. One section had been cut down entirely. That unsettled Amos more than perfect green fields would have. "You let part of it go," Amos said. "I saved what I could save," Alden replied. Amos turned his hat over in his hands. "I've got to ask you something, and I need you straight with me." Alden waited. "I work twice the hours you do. Twice. I put my whole self into that ground. And you sit here with your tea and pull twice what I do off the same acreage. How?" Alden looked at him for a long moment. "Years ago," he said, "I was doing what you're doing. I thought a man who stopped working was a man who was falling behind. I nearly lost this place trying to water every inch of it by hand." He stood. "Easier to show you." He led Amos to the tool shed and took down 2 axes. One had an edge sharp enough to bite clean into wood. The other was dull, nicked, and gray with rust. He handed Amos the dull one and nodded toward a fallen length of hardwood near the fence. "Go on, split that." Amos swung. The axe bounced. He swung again, harder, then again. After a dozen blows, he had a shallow notch in the wood and a shoulder full of fire. Alden stepped forward with the sharp axe. 3 clean swings split the log down the middle. "Same arms near enough," Alden said. "Same wood, but one man stopped long enough to sharpen his blade, and the other was too busy swinging to bother." He leaned both axes against the wall. "You've been swinging a dull axe for 15 years, Amos, and blaming your arms." They walked the rows after that, and Alden talked plain. "That tank behind my shed is not magic. It only gives me a way to save the water my well gives back slowly. During a drought, I do not pretend I can rescue every acre. I choose what has the best chance, and I protect it." He pointed toward the tubing at his feet. "This cost me money I did not have. I started small. One patch, then another. I took a risk, and I spent years paying it off. But the lines work while I sleep, and they use less water than my back ever could." He stopped beside Amos. "And your 5 crops. You cannot rewrite the season already in the ground. But next season, you decide what deserves your attention. You stop scattering yourself across 5 things and learn 2 things cold." Then he looked back toward the house. "And yes, I sleep. Most nights, 8 hours. You think that makes me soft. But a man running on no sleep makes fool mistakes. He plants at the wrong time. He misses blight until it spreads. He snaps at his children because his body has nothing left to give." He put a hand on Amos's shoulder. "You are not failing because you do not work hard enough. God knows you do. You are failing because hard work is the only tool you own." He nodded toward the 2 axes. "And some jobs need a different one." Amos did not say much on the walk home, but he did not go home convinced either. He went home ashamed, angry, frightened by how close he had come to losing everything, and furious that Alden's words had made sense. The next morning, Amos stood by the kitchen table with an old ledger open in front of him. His boots were still by the door. The doctor's warning was still in his ears. Clara set 2 cups of coffee down and waited. "I don't know how to do anything but push," he said at last. "No," she said gently. "You know how to work. That's different." He looked at the ledger. "Then teach me the rest." That day, he did not go to the field. Instead, he wrote down every crop, every expense, every hour, every debt, every job that exhausted him without bringing anything back. It felt worse than hard labor. Hard labor gave him something to hide inside. Numbers did not. A few days later, when the doctor cleared him for light work and short drives, Amos went to the county office. He asked questions he had been too proud to ask. He spoke to the man who handled drought assistance programs. He talked to the supplier who sold irrigation lines. He ran numbers until they made sense. The truth was not comfortable. He could not save every acre that season. So he chose the 2 fields with the healthiest plants, the strongest soil, and the crops buyers would still pay for. The weaker patches he stopped trying to rescue. It felt like surrender at first. Then he understood it was not surrender. It was choosing where his strength could matter. The county program would cover part of a basic water-saving system. The supplier agreed to let him pay the rest over time. Amos still needed money up front. So he walked out behind the barn and stood in front of the old tractor beneath the tarp. It had belonged to his father. It had not run in years. Amos had kept it because selling it felt too much like throwing away the last piece of the man who had taught him how to work. But the tractor had not helped the farm in a long time. It had only kept him tied to an idea of the past. 2 weeks later, Amos sold it. With the money from the tractor, the county assistance, and a payment plan he could actually meet, he installed a small drip system on the 2 acres he had chosen to protect. It took 3 days of cursing in the heat, a clogged filter, 1 broken connector, and more than 1 moment when Amos wanted to rip the whole thing back out. But when he turned the valve and watched the water bead into the soil at the roots, something inside him loosened. His 6-hour water haul became a 20-minute check of the lines. The hours it gave back to him, he spent on his head instead of his back. He studied his soil. He kept records. He learned which buyers paid on time and which crops cost more to grow than they ever returned. When the next planting season came, he cut from 5 crops down to 2. Not because 2 sounded simpler, because those were the 2 he understood, the 2 his ground could support, and the 2 that gave his family a real chance. He hired the neighbor's boy for a fair wage during picking season. The first time Amos paid another man to help, he felt guilty. The second time, he noticed he had enough energy left to plan the next week before the current one fell apart. The bigger change was harder to see. He ate supper with his family and stayed awake for it. He wrestled his children on the floor. He walked with Clara in the cool of the evening. His shoulders, for once, were not up around his ears. "You're doing less," a man in town told him one day, half suspicious. "How come you look 10 years younger doing it?" Amos took 15 years to learn that lesson. Hopefully, through this story, you won't need to spend that much time to realize the value of working smarter. Have you ever felt like you were swinging a dull axe in your work or life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel to join us for future topics. Thank you for being here.